again, everybody. It's time for Talking Ball Monday night. Jerry Hamilton and I get together, answer your questions here, get your questions going on the chat, brought to you by our friend John Donovan over at Longhorn Wealth Management Group. I see a lot of people already in the chat. A great sunset in Austin, but it's still hot. It's 7-Eleven, and OU still sucks. It doesn't matter what time of day, and that statement's still true. Look, we got a lot of stuff to get to today. Steve Sarkisian talked to the folks today, media folks at the press conference on a weekly basis that he does every Monday. Not much revealed there other than Quinn's injury. Talked a little bit about what it was. Jerry, it's interesting. He said it was not an injury that occurred. He said it was a non-contact injury. So even I thought at first it was whenever someone hit Quinn a little bit after handing the ball off, but he said it was a non-contact injury, and it's going to be one of those things. It's in his oblique or abdomen, and we'll have to wait and see what happens. But Sark said he would be called questionable if it was a week where we thought he had to file an injury report with the SEC conference. Jerry, what are your thoughts on today? Longhorns just 24 hours removed from being named the number one team in the country.
Yeah, by the way, Josie, thank you for making me laugh at the beginning of this. I needed that. Look, I watched the game back today, and I'm going to say, and I've said it before, Quinn's got some really bad luck with injuries. This is one that baffles me. It's hard to find where it happened in the game. So did it happen in the game? I don't know.
Well, they're saying Sark said today it was non-contact, Jerry. It happened on the throw to Gunnar Helm is what he said.
I mean, it's just one of the weirder injuries I've seen. I'll be honest, Bobby. It just doesn't. I mean, it didn't really. It was hard to find on there. So Quinn's he's had rough luck with injuries, and just get back when you're 100%, and he'll be playing at a high level just like he was before. But golly, is that guy had bad luck with injuries. And this one is crazy because I just didn't see it on the rewatch. So just really a bad luck injury for him. ULM, somebody mentioned in the chat, UL Monroe coaches had some really good things to say today about Texas, as they should. Obviously they're 2-0 riding high with an off week heading to Austin, so they're going to be rested, ready. And the defensive coordinator for UL Monroe said something I thought was it was pretty funny and a really good line. He's telling his players this week, if you ever wanted to play for a national championship, here's your game, because you're playing the number one team in the country. I kind of thought that was pretty funny. Coach speak stuff at the press conference today. And the UL Monroe coach talked about Arch Manning. Obviously, they're in the state of Louisiana, and talked about Arch as well. So I think it's awesome for the program to be number one. I think it's a great thing. It shows Sark's vision becoming reality. It doesn't mean you're going to win a title. It's hard to do, going to be harder now. But that Texas is in this spot right now. I mean, it's been 16 years. I mean, there's just no way around how long that's been, 16 years. And in 2008, Texas held it for 2.5 weeks before losing at Texas Tech. Texas has UL Monroe, Mississippi State off week before OU. So unless something disastrous happens, unless now people are talking about if Georgia goes into Alabama and wins, obviously that could flip-flop and things could change. But I'm not sure Georgia looked like that team Saturday. So we'll see what they come with a little more motivation. But it's awesome for the program. It's great for Texas. It's great for the university, the athletics as a whole. I mean, I said this morning, but John Clark, a top 50 basketball recruit in the country, that's at Link Prep, but he's out of Klein Kane High School. He was on a visit this weekend with his parents. And one of the things I was told about his visit by somebody who's really close to him was, as much as the Moody Center in Texas basketball putting big men in the NBA over a period of time now, it was the university as a whole. That game experience, the game day experience, the experience around the University of Texas, the success in all sports that really made a mark with John Clark out of Klein Kane, who's now at Link Prep, who's a top 50 basketball prospect in the country. So last weekend was huge, and this is huge for the football program to be one. It gets more notoriety. It gets more national attention. It also helps all sports, Bobby. It really does.
Yeah, being number one here, look at this, Jerry. This is a Phil McIntosh sums it up in a single sentence. From losing to Kansas to being ranked number 1.
Yeah. 57 points.
I mean, you and I were both on here the night they lost to Kansas, talking about them losing to Kansas.
Yeah.
Okay. Fast forward less than 3 full years. I mean, literally less than 3 full calendar years. Texas currently ranked number 1 in the country. Steve Sarkisian has done a masterful job in a number of different ways. Yes, he's an offensive play caller with few equals. But, man, he is a program builder with few equals right now. That may actually be what he's better at than play calling at times, which is saying a lot given that he was an NFL offensive coordinator at some time. And, that that's like getting your PhD. You know what I mean? When you call plays in the NFL, you're either doing it or not. Also, I want to say congratulations to Lance Jackson. Lance Jackson has been on our show multiple times. Young man out of Texarkana, Pleasant Grove, one of the major recruiting services earlier today, granted him a 5th star. So he now officially becomes a 5-star product. Jerry, you've been harping on this one since you went and saw him in person and sent video back to me of him at 270 pounds running a 4.65 or 4.7 40-yard dash. So this probably did not surprise you when it came about.
No, and the early season tape, I'm headed that direction too. I'm just not going to update our OTF rankings until later in the season. I want to see all these guys, give them all time. So that's what we're going to do a little bit later in the season, probably mid-October when guys get almost through the regular season. But I'm headed in the same direction. I think Lance Jackson is that guy. I think he's one of the top 15 or so prospects in the country in that class. I mean, the guy that has such a high ceiling. And that's the thing. He's not even close to a ceiling. I mean, he's going to blow up physically when he gets to college now because he's been a smaller school. He's Texas guy, and the staff does a great job there. But, Bobby, you know how it is. You go to football, the baseball, you play summer baseball. Once you get into that football consistency, strength and conditioning program in the next level, you've seen what it does for these smaller school guys. Ty Anthony Smith. I mean, even Colin Simmons is plus 20 pounds. I see Lance Jackson being a 6'6", 285-pound edge player that plays inside the NASCAR package. That's an absolute wrecking ball.
Yeah, I'm looking at it, Jerry, and I think the versatility they're using on the defensive line right now on the defensive fronts really give Texas a lot of different tools or a lot of different ways they could use Lance Jackson. We'll talk a little bit recruiting tonight, as well as some team news, what we heard from Sark today. This is a talking ball. That means you guys get to answer the questions or ask the questions. Jerry and I are here to give us either our opinions, give you either our opinions or the answers that we might have. Before we do that, though, I need to say thank you to our sponsor, Each and Every Talking Ball, brought to you by our friend John Donovan, President, Longhorn Wealth Management Group. John's a certified financial planner who has spent more than 30 years providing investment, retirement, insurance, and estate planning services and solutions to Longhorn families and friends across the nation. John's thrilled to see our Longhorn football team now ranked number 1, and it times perfectly with John's own recent recognition as a 5-star wealth manager in Texas, as published in the Texas Monthly August 2024 edition. John wants to celebrate both of these outstanding rating recognitions by offering each of you a free 90-minute consultation to explore how Longhorn Wealth can help you maximize your wealth, minimize your taxes, and secure your legacy. Simply call John and his team at Longhorn Wealth 972-707-4900 or go online www.longhornwealth.net to schedule your free consultation today. All right, Jerry, let's go to the chat line and let's start it up. This one's from Derek Best. Have you guys been impressed with Sark's play calling this year? Thanks for all you guys do. Keep it up. Hook 'em from Indiana. Thanks, Derek, for the super chat.
Nope, needs a lot of work. I polled some college coaches today, especially one in Tallahassee. I said, nah, needs a lot of work there.
Well, I'll tell you this much, Jerry being facetious. I've got to say this. He had it absolutely dialed in against Michigan. And, you know, it felt like he was pretty dialed in against UTSA as well. Other than 2 drives that stuttered in the first half after Arch got finished scoring 2 touchdowns, and then a drive in the third quarter where Silas Bolden I think he lost 10 yards on a reverse that kind of put him behind the chains. Other than that, Texas looked like a juggernaut on offense, and there's no doubt that he's calling plays right now, Derek. I wonder, a little bit of me wonders this, Jerry. Is Sark's play calling getting better, or does the talent on his team match what he wants to call with his plays? Or maybe a little bit of both.
Well, I think his wide receiver core is so talented, deep, and versatile. I watched the game back today, and Isaiah Bond, that was freakish speed. That was he moved every bit as fast as Xavier Worthy did down that sideline. Matthew Golden, I mean, he looked 4.25 to me, guys. And Matthew Golden, that 3rd and 3 catch from Arch, where he pulled the tight spin move and ended up getting 20. Matthew Golden's a stud football player. Ryan Wingo, obviously. DeAndre Moore, just starting to get his feet wet. He's a really good football player. Jonte Cook, 2 touchdowns. UT boy asked, I think Jonte will get in the end zone again. So I'm going to give him 3 touchdowns in 2 games. Really good player. Silas Bolden, he's starting to get going. Hadn't even made the big plays yet, but you know it's coming probably Saturday. He just has more toys, man. I mean, like, and Jaden Blue didn't even play Saturday. He's got more. He can be as creative as he wants with the play calling. And maybe in some ways, Bobby's forced to be when Cedric Baxter went down.
I mean, look, even Gunnar Helm is faster than JT Sanders, guys. I'm just telling you now.
He definitely is running with a football.
Yeah, he has more. He has the kind of toys he wanted to have when he first got to Austin. So I don't know if he's better play caller now. I think he's added some tricks to his offense. So to answer Derek's question, I don't know if he's a better play caller or he has more well-rounded personnel that fits what he likes to call. I think it's a little bit of both, maybe.
Question for the chat and Bobby, because I'm a little tired. I can't remember right now. Sark's first year, who are the starting wideouts? Xavier Worthy, Casey Kane, and Whittington, somewhat.
Wasn't it Marcus Washington?
Marcus Washington.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. I mean, so.
And Whittington went out fairly early, right?
Yeah. So, I mean, I think that's just kind of where we're at now.
Yeah. This is from Kenneth Cassidy. Jerry, should Texas take a 3rd running back, considering the possibility of running backs not returning due to health? I will say this. It's not just health. I mean, Jaden Blue's, if he keeps this up, he's probably going pro this year. I mean, even if he's not a early round pick, you would think he would probably look to do that, given the fact that, you worry about tread on the tire at running back. What do you think? Texas take a 3rd running back? That would be awfully hard.
I don't think so. Both of the guys, I believe, are early enrollees. I know Simon is. I need to check on Ricky Stewart. But the problem is spring practice. You're without Baxter. You're without Clark. If Blue does go pro, Belton Gardner's not there. I mean, you do have a numbers problem in the spring. I'm not sure they wouldn't take somebody out of the portal, though, versus another high school back. I just think it might be a stopgap type of player, a Belton Gardner type that's in the portal, maybe, a little bit higher level, a bigger frame. But I don't know about another high school back. That would surprise me a little bit. I think it's going to be 2 high school back classes. If you take 3 high school backs in this class, first of all, majority of those guys are committed. And they're not going to bounce and come to a class that already has 2 highly ranked running backs in it. But that gets you in a little bit of an issue recruiting high school backs in 26. I think you'd go to the portal for a guy who has 1 year left. Would make sense to me.
I think that makes sense. That way you get a stopgap, just in case Cedric Baxter doesn't fully recover, and or Christian Clark bouncing back from Achilles isn't always just 12 months. So there's a number of different pieces to that that I would agree with, Jerry. Hey, this one from K-Drag4. Watching game film, do you guys really think Cole Hudson should be taking time from DJ Campbell? I'll go first, Jerry. I think it's perfectly fine. I mean, it hasn't bit Texas yet. And frankly, I think they need to get other guys more time. And Cole Hudson is a good football player.
Yeah.
Cole Kubelik, one of the ESPN guys, put up a little clip of Cole Hudson absolutely detonating somebody against Colorado State. You know what I mean? He's been in on scoring drives at Michigan. I don't have any problem with this. DJ Campbell continues to make some small errors, like he had a false start. Cole Hudson made one himself, though. I mean, so I get it. But Texas has a talented offensive line, and Kyle Flood said he was going to rotate guys more this year than he did before. That's what's happening right now.
Yeah, I mean, I'm fine with what they're doing now. DJ, I think his biggest thing is he's got to continue to get better in pass pro. He almost got Arch killed on that sack, that backside sack now. I mean, he pulled on that play, it was one of the throws that Arch made. So I think DJ's tremendous in run blocking. Him and Cam on the right side, I think, are really, really strong run blocking tandem. Pass pro, he's got to keep coming along. But I think they're fine rotating. I mean, it's a long season. I mean, they're going to play a lot of snaps. And again, it was last year, it was Cole Hudson that got hurt. He's the one that's had some injury issues. He played his whole freshman year, but these guys are going to get nicked up. The depth matters.
All right. We got a couple more questions coming in here. Jerry, here's one that we both talked about on Coffee and Football one morning. Bobby, Jerry, what did you think of Rick Neuheisel's commentary that Sark is building Alabama in Austin? You think that's true? Juan, there's an element of it that is absolutely true. The thing with Sark is that he is stacking talent across multiple positions. He's also stacking quarterbacks like Nick Saban did. I mean, don't forget, I mean, they went from Jalen Hurts to Tua to Mac Jones to Bryce Young. Okay. Those are what it was. Hurts, he's playing in the Monday night game tonight. You know, that's one of the things that people want to talk about, how Nick did such and such on the offensive line or the defensive line. They forget he had a whale of a group at quarterback in a row. So I feel really good about where Texas is, not only because of what Texas has done on the offensive and defensive line in recruiting, linebacker in recruiting, even secondary, wide receiver, but also because I think Texas has lined up a set of quarterbacks, and everybody got a glimpse of it on Saturday night.
Yeah, I think, look, I'm not sure I'm going to compare it to that. We're not going to, because of a 12-team playoff, we're not going to see anything like what we saw with Nick Saban. It's just not going to happen. It's just, there's going to be, and there's too much parity due to the portal. But is Sark building a program that 4 out of every 5 years should be in the college football playoffs? Then you see where the chips fall. Yeah, I do believe that. And talent-wise, I think it's going to be a top 5 program in college football consistently from a talent standpoint, as Bobby said, with the quarterback play. Then the next big step, I think, you know what? I love this freshman class, by the way. Yes, Colin Simmons. I mean, on defense, yes, Colin Simmons. But Ty Anthony Smith's going to be an absolute hammer that can play in space when he's 225, 230. Really good player. Alex January, really good player. No wonder Duncanville. Really good player. You know, I think Kobe Black's made some strides. I think Jordan Johnson-Rebel is going to be a really good player. I really like this defensive class, and there's more guys in that class. Azina is going to have to be a little patient, right? A Melvin Hills, who Texas does like as an upside rotational guy. That just wasn't there in the spring. I really like the fresh Santana Wilson, who wasn't in the spring. Phil Sami, who's hurt. I really like the speed, the athleticism, and what Texas is doing on defense in that last class, and in this class especially, with Lance Jackson, Smith Orogbo, Elijah Barnes, 6'2.5", 239. Then obviously Jonah Williams. And I'm here to tell you, I think Caleb Chester is really dadgum good corner, by the way.
All right. I got more coming in. I've got a question here that's a trivia question of sorts, and I think it's a trick trivia question, and I think I may know the answer. So let's find it here. If I can find it. It's about the wishbone. Here it is from Buck Travis. Trivia. Who was the last QB to take a snap in the wishbone, presumably at Texas, and what was the result of that play? I'm going to let everybody think about that for a second. And pause for a couple seconds to give y'all a chance, and then I'm going to give my answer. I think the answer is David Ash, because if you remember correctly, after Darrell Royal passed, Mac Brown and Brian Harsin came out in the wishbone to start one play. David Ash was the quarterback. He threw they were lined up in the wishbone. He had a throwback pass to, was it Jackson Shipley?
It was.
And then one of the two then completed a pass to who was the tight end that day? Darn it. Now I'm going to forget the tight end's name. But long story short, Buck, if I got that wrong, let me know. But I think that's the last time Texas has played or has run the wishbone. All right, guys, a couple more questions. A lot of them actually coming in. We'll get to them as quickly as possible. Jerry, your thoughts. This one from Rapid Calm. Your thoughts on Chris Henry Jr., that's the son of Chris Henry. Looks to me like he could be a generational wide receiver. Looks just like his dad. What were your thoughts on him? Isn't he out in California? Is that
he is at Mater Dei, committed to Ohio State. Look, I think he would fit in well with the this freshman class of wide receivers. I think he's talent level like those guys are. I don't know about generational. I think he would fit in well with these group of standout freshman guys. I think he's on par with those guys. Jeremiah Smith, Ryan Wingo, Ryan Williams. And that group of guys, I think he's right there with them.
Gotcha. Jeff, David Ash. There we go. Thanks, Buck, for following that up, buddy. Jeff Carey. This one, he's a regular poster around here. I'm a little concerned about our DB recruiting. Jerry, you and I talked about that today, actually. We know Texas is kicking the tires on some other people. They're just not ready to go public with it yet. But Texas has two commitments right now in the secondary. Caleb Chester out of Fort Bend Marshall, the corner, and Jonah Williams, who you just went and saw on Friday night from Galveston Ball.
Yeah, so it'll be interesting to see, does Texas go after another high school safety? Or do they go maybe to the portal? I mean, that could be a position in the secondary. Look, I like what Sark's what he's doing. They like Cade Phillips. Obviously, he flipped to LSU because he wants a chance to play corner. And he thought he'd end up at safety at Texas. And I liked that take at the time. And I like the two guys Texas has. I mean, Jonah Williams looks tremendous. He looked really good Friday. I think Caleb Chester is a very good and underrated player to outplay his ranking. He has got football intelligence for days, and we're seeing how that gets you on the field at Texas, by the way. I just wonder if this is a position, Bobby, you go for the – you just shoot for the stars, Devin Sanchez, Naeem Offord, Dejon Lee. It's going to be tough, but you shoot for the stars. And if not, go find a guy in the portal if you think you need him. That may be where this class heads. And now, I'm not saying there couldn't be a senior offer out there, because there's always that possibility. I'm kind of searching around for a few guys right now just to doing some checks. But if we know Sark, he's deep sea fishing right now at that position.
And he should.
Yeah.
And he should. I will say this. This is one thing I wanted to add about that position, Jerry, because I was looking at CJ's post from earlier today about players and how many snaps they had. Who was it? The corner, Javion Cole, actually had 15 snaps in this game. That's the most he's had by far for Texas as a Longhorn. Gavin Holmes, by the way, 33 snaps against UTSA as well. So the cornerback transfer from San Jose State now getting some action, legitimate playing time for Texas. Mike Gosnell, heard this one this weekend. If Arch was a Tulane QB, they would have beat OU. Schedule sets up well for Quinn to be ready for Red River, and OU could be a wounded animal. Yes, I watched a lot of that OU game, Jerry, just because I know the OU game's coming up, and I wanted to get my eyes on the Sooners against a reasonably decent team in Tulane. Tulane had that game. They had the ball with the opportunity to go into the lead in the fourth quarter twice. The Sooners defense, in my opinion, is legit. I don't think anybody's going to be able to shut people out these days, but they are legit. Not on a regular basis, not good teams. They are legit on defense. On offense, boy, it's piecemeal right now for them. Really is piecemeal. And I think that's going to cause them some major issues this weekend against Tennessee. Somebody asked me for my score prediction this morning on that game. I said 42-7 Volunteers. I mean, I know people are a little guffawed by that, but I just look, I think Tennessee's on a rocket ship roll right now, and I think OU's trying to find themselves. They're trying to find an offensive identity. This isn't a game. You can't play Tennessee trying to find your offensive identity. It doesn't work that way. Team's too good. So I'm looking. I know this is in Norman, and it's the SEC first game for the Sooners, but tough.
My problem for Oklahoma right now, overall in offense, there are a lot of years Oklahoma had a running back they could hand the ball off to when things weren't going well, and that could be a difference maker for them. They don't have that. Now, Javonte Barnes is a pretty good player, but they don't have –
Taylor Tatum looked good.
Pretty good player. Good. But it's not what they had. I mean, they had some special guys at running back in some of those years.
Well, DeMarco Murray and Joe Mixon.
And Adrian Peterson.
Yes.
I mean, so they had guys who could go dominate a game if they needed them to. They don't have that at running back. So
they had some quarterbacks that could dominate games too.
So if your offensive line is the worst I've ever seen at Oklahoma, or since Bob Stoops was hired, and then now transitioning to Lincoln Riley and Venables, worst offensive line I've seen at Oklahoma. Maybe Bob's first year, but probably not. And your quarterback's not a natural playmaker. And I'm not saying he can't go run a combine 40 times, but he's not a natural playmaker. And you can't just hand the ball off to a running back, and even if there's not an unblocked guy, that he can go make 5 or 6 yards and make something out of nothing. They got offensive problems. They're a problem defensively, I think. And I'm waiting to see how good they are in defense. I think they're good. I mean, they were 77th in the country last year. I think they're top 40 this year. We'll see if they're top 20. Their problem on defense is their defensive line is the most improved position on the team. But Tennessee's offensive line is really good. So, and you got an athletic quarterback. It's a bad matchup for Oklahoma. And James Pierce off the edge is a total freak. So it's a bad matchup for Oklahoma. And bad matchups, we saw what happened in Ann Arbor.
I could be wrong, but I just think it's going to be a lot to a little. And the Sooners aren't going to be happy. Will Butler with a comment here. I've got a little trivia question as part of this.
Don't do it, Bobby.
I believe ULM upset Alabama in 06 or 07, maybe. It was the last non-conference home loss by Nick Saban to an unranked team during his career. Maybe the only one, I think, during his career at Alabama. Jerry, who was the offensive coordinator for that Crimson Tide team?
I knew you were going to do it. I knew you were going to make me answer this on
the that same offensive coordinator scored 90 points for South Alabama this weekend.
It was Major Applewhite.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir, it was. Randy Jones, how about his hand thumb? That didn't look good either. Not wanting anybody to touch his hand. It looked on a replay. He hit his hand on a UTSA guy's helmet. He absolutely did that. Then he did the through the interception. Sark did not mention that. And he mentioned strictly his oblique. Quinn went back in after that and threw the ball really well after the interception, in my opinion. So whether they gave him a steroid shot on the sideline or what have you, I don't know. But my point is, I don't know. I do agree it didn't look good. I don't think that's the thing that's keeping him out right now. I think it's the oblique.
Tyler asked, how did no one ask him that question? That's the question I would like. How did nobody ask that question today? Because I do think I watched it on second in the UTSA guy's hand going for the ball. Definitely got his thumb, maybe a weird angle. I'm not sure if it's a press back or press down angle, but look, Quinn did not let anybody touch his hand after that. So it was off. You don't do that unless you're in pain, by the way. That's not something where I'm a right-handed quarterback, don't touch me. No, just watch a football game. You only do that if you're in pain.
Some other questions here. The Astronaut Universe, excuse me there, HASH, by the way. Trey Moore needs to step up and live up to preseason hype. Who has the most sacks versus ULM? Boy, if they keep playing Colin Simmons 30-plus snaps, it might be Colin Simmons. I mean, but I think Trey Moore is playing fine. He's actually a smart player. He just doesn't have that many opportunities, guys. All 3 sacks, by the way, Jerry, you mentioned this earlier today, I think. All 3 sacks against ULM, by the way, came from backups. So it's not, pointing just to Trey Moore, et cetera. I think it's inaccurate.
I want to say this. Trey Moore is actually playing really good football. He just doesn't have the sack numbers. He's playing really well in what Texas is asking him to do.
All right. Hey, this one from Antoine. GH, what do you know about Manny Muhammad's little brother? Do you know anything about him? I didn't know he had a little brother, currently a freshman at South Oak Cliff.
I don't know. Is his brother or his cousin? I was sent a video a couple of years ago, and the kid was in 7th grade, and nobody could tackle him. Let me check on that.
Nobody could tackle him in 7th grade? Can you imagine? I mean, just think back. And somebody on here has probably seen a great player and said, like somebody's seen. I've never seen a Vince Young, an Adrian Peterson, or an Earl Campbell, one of those types, Eric Dickerson. Can you imagine those guys in 7th grade, much less high school, when they still made the competition look like mincemeat? You know what I mean? And look like men playing boys, right? I can't imagine 7th grade guys. Just that's got to be another.
Ivory Martin said it's his cousin. That's what I thought. It's his cousin because I was sent a video and I was going to say, "Wow, okay, that kid was pretty talented." If that's who you're talking about.
Jerry, here's another one. Do we go after Q Gibson at North Crowley? That North Crowley, Texas has hit up at that place a couple different times, not just this year with Jonathan Cunningham, but also Andre Kojo and some others. Was it Samaje Burrell two years ago? Q Gibson, that's the wide receiver there at North Crowley. Is that correct? Is he committed to TCU or Tech?
No, well, the quarter, they have probably 17 Division I players over there, but they have a senior running back that can really roll. But they have so many players over there that are really good. They had a corner that moved in from Georgia that's a really good player. He's a probably Power 4 level player. Obviously, Jonathan Cunningham's having a good season. John Turntine looks unbelievable pulling guys. But then they have other linemen committed to Missouri. They've got a lot of guys over there. I think the guy he's talking about, maybe the slot back wide receiver. I'll check on that. But the quarterback is a hellacious player that'll be, I think, is going to be a really good slot receiver at the next level.
Gotcha. Coachy Samuel has one for us. Do you guys think we can hold on to Sark when that idiot Jerry Jones comes calling for him? Look, I think a lot of people are going to take the temperature of Steve Sarkisian and whether or not he wants to leave Texas, considering what he's done in just 4 short years in Austin. The question I have for Steve Sarkisian or anybody right now, you go to Jerry Jones, you're not controlling personnel, bud. You're just not. And that may be part of the problem. And,
wait,
long, but
how many years did Dak just sign for? Chat.
Yeah,
I didn't keep up.
4 years for 240, I think was the number.
Yeah, I wouldn't go.
And so, look, my point being, people want to talk about Sark going elsewhere. I think part of it is just worry or concern, and part of it is other schools hoping so that something breaks up what Texas is building here. But the thing about college football, you are the czar for your team. You make every decision if you so desire.
And remember who he coached under after he came back from the NFL?
Nick Saban.
Hey, right. By the way, this is a great point.
Buddy
100%.
Pal, big guy says Sark isn't going anywhere while Arch is here. It certainly looked tantalizing on Saturday night. Guys, coaches tend not to vacate when they have a quarterback. I'll put it that way. Yeah. If they've got a quarterback, they don't really go anywhere. You know what I mean? Let me see some other questions here that we've got. Feel free, by the way, to get your questions in. We've got a number of them here tonight, but I do want to we're going to be about an hour on this show tonight, so feel free to get in as many as you'd like. Jerry and I will be here. Let's go to this next one, Jerry, and see what you think. Tyler says, any news on Terrence Brooks? Is he hurt at Illinois? He hasn't done much there. I think he started the second game, but I don't know if he's subsequently been hurt. I think part of the issue here is, frankly, Terrence does not run extremely well. And Brett Bielema likes to put his cornerbacks on an island a little bit. And if you don't run well, that's going to be hard. That's going to be hard to do, frankly. We'll see what that means and what that looks like. This one from Freelance Society. Do you think Colin Simmons will start by the OU game? Also, how did Sadir look? Sadir got 10 plays into this game, according to the stat sheet. Jerry, what'd you think of Colin Simmons? Will he start by the OU game? He's already playing starter snaps with 30 in the game.
I don't even know if it matters, really. The rotation is what it is. He's going to continue to play more snaps as the season moves along. I'm not big on does he start or not. All I want to see is does he play half the snaps. If he plays half the snaps, he'll probably have 5 or 6 tackles, a sack and a half or 2, and some hurries based on how the Oklahoma offensive line's looking right now.
You're going to beat the OU offensive line into submission.
Not me, James Pierce is.
Hey, by the way, talking about a bunch of bad injuries this year.
Yes.
We mentioned Notre Dame lost their starting left tackle before the year. They lost 2 more starters against Purdue.
Yeah.
And they've lost 3 OL starters this year. Tough luck there a little bit. Never want to see anybody get injured. Just not something I like to talk about. Update on the linebacker situation. Boateng and Faremo. Boateng out of IMG. Faremo out of Southern California, Jerry.
Yeah, so Faremo, I actually exchanged messages last week with somebody close to that recruitment. He does not have a visit set to Texas, or didn't last week. We'll check in again this week. So I think that one is, if he doesn't get back on campus this year, they won't get him because he's going on other campuses, bottom line. Is it going to be USC if they beat Michigan Saturday and suddenly they have some defensive momentum recruiting for the first time under Lincoln Riley in LA? Potential. Notre Dame, we'll see how their season plays out. Obviously, Texas is still full go there. Boateng, the linebacker from IMG, he was at the Texas-Michigan game as a guest in Michigan. He's made 4 official visits already: Michigan, Notre Dame, Ohio State. I believe maybe Miami as well. I can't remember the 4th school. I spoke with somebody at IMG last week, and I asked about him, and the response was pretty obvious. He's like, they have to recruit him as hard as the other schools are. Yep, they got him lined up for a visit, but are they going to really recruit him as hard as the other schools are? So that's what I think we'll see based on how Texas feels about Madden Faremo as the month of September wraps up leading into the Georgia game.
All right, coming up back, this one from RWC. Can Baxter come back for postseason? Theoretically, he could, but not physically. No. This is going to be a good 9 months rehab.
Yeah, he will be out for spring practice.
Yeah, fair. That's
Christian Clark for spring practice, by the way.
Hey, Jerry, Trevor Gooseby also got a lot of snaps, left tackle. Of course, in a 56-7 win. Backups are going to get a lot of play. He also came in really quickly when Banks went down with I don't even know what that was, a shot to the solar plexus maybe that he took, and then got back up and came back in the next series. But how did Trevor Gooseby look, in your opinion, on your second watch?
I didn't see anything, glaring with him. I think the main thing with him is he is on that 2-year development curve. And I think that's been the plan by him, his circle, and Jeff and Kyle Flood. And I think he's in year 2 of that. And so he grew so fast, everything's got to catch up with him, his strength. And so everything's got to keep coming with him. And I think as he gets stronger, he'll become an even more physical player. And I think that's going to be the big step for him in the SEC is the physicality as he continues to get stronger. I think he moves his feet well. I think he's got body quickness. I think he's got really good length, obviously. I just think he's a year and 3 games into a 2-year process. The spring is going to be really big for Trevor Gooseby.
This is a really good question. With all the receivers we already have and experience they got this year, do you think Sark will get any from the portal for next year? I'm going to say this. Never say never, and it depends who's available. I mean, Sark's not going to turn down a first-round player. Now, and it also depends. You think Bond's going pro. What if Matthew Golden leaves?
I think he's going to have a chance.
Yeah, and so you look at it that way too. And if they get decimated too much, Sark's not going to be young at wide receiver.
No.
So even if a DeAndre Moore and Jonte Cook return, as well as a Ryan Wingo, I can still see them taking another guy. So I'm in that thing, Coachy, of I believe it's going to depend on who's available in the portal and who comes back. They could be picky in the portal now more than they ever have been before. That's for sure.
Yeah, I think Bond obviously will go pro, and I bet Golden goes pro. And this is the reason I say that. Just say you're a 4th-round pick. The parameters for the 4th round are between 4.5 and 4.8 million. I'm just going to come out and say this. If Matthew Golden is considered a 4th-round pick, he's nuts if he comes back.
Well, the salary is not guaranteed in the 4th round. It's not guaranteed, though.
But go on with it, man. Get on with it. Get on with it.
A lot of wampum. To Jerry's point, that's a lot of wampum.
Get on with it.
Fresh Prince 512. I'm curious about your take on this one, Jerry. I have a buddy who coached Pee Wee ball in Miami for years. He insists in-state talent down there is not what it was 20 years ago, and that has had an effect on the big 3 schools. Do you see the same? Is talent in Miami? I mean, did they switch sports and go to basketball, or is it just not the same?
No, I mean, look, state of Florida has the 2nd most players in the NFL right now. Texas has the most, Florida 2nd. Per capita, so Florida's ahead of Texas per capita. Per capita, that means Florida's a top 3 in the country. So they're number 2 in players overall. Per capita, they're also top 3. I do think Dade County may not have as many big bodies. And I lived down there for 5 or 6 years and doing this nationally. I was over the Under Armour camps in Orlando and Miami for years. I'm not sure they have as many big bodies down Dade County way. Now, if that state's split into 3 parts for me, there's Dade, Broward County. Palm Beach County doesn't have as many kids anymore for whatever reason. But then you go to the Tampa, Bradenton with IMG areas, and IMG, a lot of those kids aren't from the state. Then you go to Orlando. Then you go up to Jacksonville. Panhandle has a few, that Milton, some of those areas. But Jacksonville, I don't see that, man. I mean, like, I was at Mandarin, and I'm not saying I'm right, but I was at Mandarin last week, and, man, they got 8, 9, 10 D1 kids on that team. I'm not seeing that. But if the point is his buddy's a youth league coach in Miami, I do think Dade may be a little down from where it was in the 80s, 90s, and early 2000s, that county. So, but the interesting thing about the state, though, is I think Orlando's got a lot of really good players. It's the bigger bodies. There's more bigger bodies the farther north you go in that state.
This one from Kelly Horns Up. Why does Sark seem not to go for the big running back to pound up the middle? The end of the UTSA game would have been ideal for that, as well as short yardage. I got to say, I mean, Jarrett Gibson is a big pounded up the middle back. He's just young. Cedric Baxter is a big pounded up the middle back. He was just young a year ago.
Christian Clark would have been, in a way.
Yeah, those guys are going to be that. So I don't think that Sark doesn't go for them. He loves to run inside zone. It's just the ones that are healthy. The 2 best ones, at least at this time, are Jaden Blue and Trey Wisner, who typically are more that boutique back that we've seen Texas deploy at times. A lot of people, by the way, Kelly, are talking about this, Jerry, too. I want to mention this, how Texas and Sark are deploying more of a Kansas City Chiefs style offense right now. Isaiah Pacheco is the starter for the Chiefs at running back. And he's not a big guy. He's not a pounded up the middle guy by any stretch. But you know what? They don't have a huge amount of problems running the ball, and they're certainly moving the ball as well as anyone. They're two-time defending Super Bowl champ.
I want to say this. I think what Kelly Horns maybe get, James Simon is coming as well, who's in the same mold of Gibson, Clark, going to be a really good all-around player. I think the Kelly Horns point, I don't think you're going to see Sark. And I'm not going to say never. There's not a never in any of this. I don't think you're going to see Sark ideally sign a 6'2.5", 240-pound between the tackles runner, because he wants those guys to be able to play with and without the football and be able to move them around within the offense. I mean, think about Cedric Baxter lining up out wide against Alabama, first play of the game, whip it out to him. So I think there's some things within the offense for Sark. He wants guys who can do that, but I don't think he's going to sacrifice the versatility in his scheme for a guy that's 6'2.5", 240, that you can only play him when you're going to hand them the ball off in between the hash marks. I don't think he's going to do that with his scheme.
All right, I want to do another read for our good sponsor and friend, John Donovan, president, Longhorn Wealth Management Group. John's proud UT alum, served his 15 years on the Dallas, Texas X's board, and he's now helping lead the build-out of the Collin County Texas X's chapter. John sends his congrats to Coach Sark and the team for their new #1 ranking, which coincides with John's own recent recognition as a 5-star wealth manager in Texas, according to Texas Monthly August 2024 edition. To celebrate both, John's offering all OTF members a free 90-minute consultation to explore how to take your own financial picture to the top. Either call John's office, 972-707-4900, or go online, longhornwealth.net, to schedule your free consultation today. John says hook 'em to everybody. Thank you, John, for your sponsorship. This one, let's just follow this one up quickly. Does OU suck? Yes, that's fair. Josie, Jerry, I have to ask, is your skin on fire wearing a Longhorn shirt and not an Aggie shirt? What is all this talk about you being a secret Aggie plant?
Joe and I have the back and forth fun stuff with Oregon and A&M. We have a blast with it. He's a funny guy. He keeps me laughing.
Okay, good stuff, Joe. Todd Lacey, for ULM and possibly Mississippi State, does Texas run more 12 personnel and possibly max protect more for Arch? Do you run more passes where the reads are simpler? One thing we detected with Arch versus Quinn wasn't about personnel groupings. It was actually about pre-snap motion. A lot of pre-snap motion can get a little hairy for a young quarterback, an inexperienced one that has to also deal with the play clock. And so Texas went down to 40% pre-snap motion with Arch at quarterback. They did not pay particular attention to 12 personnel, which is 1 running back, 2 tight ends. Todd, I think I would do that maybe in some regards. And I'll say why. You can't afford to get Arch Manning hurt in this game. Look, Trey Owens, good young quarterback. Texas cannot afford to lose both quarterbacks, 1 and 2. So I hear what you're saying, Todd, but I don't think they're going to go exclusively to 12 personnel. Texas runs a heavy dose of 12 personnel, though, with Juan Davis and Gunnar Helm. They really have done that more than I thought they would going into the season. And I think part of the reason why is because of Juan Davis's ability as a blocker. All right, let's make some Texas Tech fans mad here. Rudy Serta wants to know your thoughts on this, Jerry. Do you think Micah Hudson regrets choosing Texas Tech now?
Probably not.
I wanted more from you on that, Jerry.
Well, I mean,
I needed more.
Look, I mean, I'm trying not to be an ass here, but when you can go anywhere in the country and you choose Texas Tech, how serious are you about being a great football player in that scenario? Not that Joey McGuire and those guys don't do a good job and are good recruiters, but if you can go anywhere in America and that's where you choose, how serious are you about being a great football player? That would be my question he has to answer.
Randy, that was a pretty hot take. Randy Jones, you did.
What do you ask, Bobby?
You did not disappoint. You did not disappoint. Randy Jones, why do the false starts keep happening over and over? Why can't that be cleaned up? Boy, I wish I had an answer for that because it's not just DJ Campbell. It's also Cam Williams. We haven't seen as much from Jake Majors this year. I mean, I don't know what to tell you on that. I really don't. I wish I had an answer because if I did, I'd give it to Sark and try to help him out at this point. Ryan Nelson with a really good question. Jerry, Bobby, how many O-line starters do you predict we lose after this season? Is it possible we lose all 5? Yes.
Yes.
I wouldn't say it's 50-50 or greater, but it's definitely a possibility that Texas loses all 5. DJ Campbell's draft eligible. Cam Williams is draft eligible. Of course, Connor, Banks, and Majors all are as well. I think it's possible. Hey, Jerry, I do have a question. You've been really high on Cam Williams since he came out of high school.
Yeah.
Abnormally so compared to everybody else, by the way. I give you credit for that. What value might it be if Cam Williams spent 1 year in college at left tackle instead of right? Because then you could go from talking about being at the end of the first round or a definite second round pick to, I mean, look, if he's as good as you think he might be a top 5 pick because he's got the size and speed, size, quickness, and strength.
Oh, I think he could be. Look, I mean,
is that enough maybe for him to stay potentially?
God, the salaries have changed so much in the NFL. I find it tough. I just find it tough. I mean, so much of this nowadays is guys are pushed to go get the contract, get to your second contract, right? Develop in the NFL, get to your second contract. And if you're I've always said if you're a first round pick in any sport, you need to go. And I've just always maintained it because you do not have control over your health the following year. If you're a first round pick, I think you need to go. But I hear your point. If he did stay, if he stayed and said, you know what, I think I might want to try this left tackle thing. I mean, yeah, he could develop in the top 5 pick. I think he's that talented. But if he's a first round pick, my advice would be go if he gets to that point this year.
Rick Aberguy asks, what cornerbacks could Texas push on for flips? You mentioned a couple of really high profile guys earlier. Who were those guys again? Naheem Offord. That's the young man out of Alabama, right?
Committed to Ohio State. And I'm not saying anything's going on with him, but, Devin Sanchez committed to Ohio State. You have Dorian Brew committed to Oregon, whether he is a true corner, a nickel, or even a safety, that's going to be determined by him on the next level. I mean, there's some guys like that out there. I think that's what Texas is doing. They're evaluating senior guys. Maybe somebody pops up they really like here in the next few weeks, or they're just going to go deep sea fishing, as Sark calls it.
And see what comes up. I mean, look, Florida's already ready to open. Would they have any corners Texas might be interested in? I mean, just
somebody's asking about this. The kid that just decommitted from Oklahoma on the D line. That kid's from Miami Central. He's only making that decommitment if he's going to stay home at Miami or go to Alabama. It's going to be one of the two. Miami's got a lot of juice right now.
Yeah, well, they're winning. I mean, give them credit. They went into the swamp and may have taken Billy Napier's scalp with them.
So somebody's asking about Kevin Wynn. I want to hit that. Exchange some messages with him over the weekend. Doesn't have a Texas visit date set up. I do think there's a possibility that does happen. And Georgia and Tennessee are also trying to get him on campus. Obviously, Georgia will get him on campus. It's 45 minutes away from home. But I think FSU's got a real fight to hold on to him, obviously.
All right. Hey, real quick, thank you, OTF. Are we still worried about Quinn's thumb? We hit on this earlier, John. I didn't see your chat whenever super chat come up when we talked about this, but Jerry and I are worried, but we're not on the inside right now. Sark is clearly the most concerned about the oblique, but we'll see if there are any lingering effects. None were talked about in today's press conference for that. Ducks, you say.
Somebody's asking about Antoine from Westgate. He's committed to Miami. I think that would be tough, even if Texas made a push.
Jabari Antoine. Yeah, it's another one that has a tie to Terry Joseph, as well as Derek Williams, defensive back for Texas. Hey, this one from Rapid Calm. We'll end with this one tonight, guys. Who are 2 or 3 of the best prospects you've ever seen come out of the Fort Worth area? Man. The Fort Worth area is hard. Do you include the mid cities in that and the Arlington? Because then it changes my answer probably. Jerry, what do you have for
you got to go first, Bobby. I got to look at this to see where this kid's from.
I really like the guy that in high school that ended up going to Oklahoma State, the Tylan Wallace. Is that his name?
Yeah, from Fort Worth.
I really liked him. I thought he was a really good prospect. But man, Blake Brockermeyer probably is one of them.
Yeah.
To be honest, he was
Ashawn Robinson.
Ashawn Robinson, definitely. Both those guys are from Arlington Heights, I think, in Fort Worth. Both first-round draft picks in the NFL.
I'm looking up Fort Worth Wyatt. There was a kid I loved out of Wyatt. No, I'm not talking about Darius Wyatt. Let's see. I will say this. We're missing a couple obvious guys. I probably didn't cover those guys, but they've had some hellacious basketball players out of there too, by the way.
Yeah, no doubt. Well,
Tommy Maddox, LBL, but that's kind of easy.
Fort Worth probably had better football back in the 70s, 60s, and 70s than it did the 80s, 90s, and into the 2000s. So overall, at least from a team perspective, but clearly they've had better players, and not better players necessarily than Blake Brockermeyer and Ashawn Robinson. Those have to be 2 of the very best as well. All right, that's going to do it for tonight's Talkin' Ball. We appreciate all of you for joining us. Thank you all so much for stopping in. If you get a chance, please join us over at ontexasfootball.com, the message boards over there, as well as our news and notes and articles. Again, ontexasfootball.com. Right now we have a special $39.95 annually if you use the promo code OTFOG. That's OTFOG for 1 year, $39.95. Otherwise, it'd be $59. Again, on Texas Football, use code OTFOG. Guys, thanks for joining us today. Longhorns, #1 ranked team in the country. We're excited about that. We'll be back tomorrow morning with Coffee and Football. For Jerry Hamilton, as well as our producer, Matt Hutchison, I'm Bobby Burton. Y'all have a good night. Hook 'em.